The 2021 NBA Draft is actually just a couple weeks away. In today's video, I'm going to rank the top 30 prospects for the 2021 NBA Draft, and that's what I'm going to do in today's video. But before I get into this video, a lot of you that watch these videos are not subscribed, so go ahead and get your life together and hit that subscribe button, turn notifications, and leave a like on this video. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this video. The best player in the 2021 NBA Draft is Cade Cunningham. That's pretty obvious. He averaged 20 points a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and it's going to be the first overall pick unless it's somehow traded, which I doubt. So he's the best player in this draft. There is no and if or buts about that. He's 6'8" and a point guard. He gets a lot of comparisons to Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, all of them. Some of the best players in the NBA right now. And obviously he's going to go to the Pistons, which are not going to be probably competing this year or this upcoming season, nor that it's going to be a little bit. But Cade Cunningham's going to be a star on that Pistons team. And yeah, he's the best player in this draft. There's no and if or buts. Next up, the second best player in this draft, I think, is Jalen Green out of the G League Ignite. Very explosive player. And Jalen Green is going to be the second pick probably, or the third pick. Like, it's going to be one or the other. And he played pretty well, probably versus better competition than these college players played in the G League, which are sometimes and most of the time former NBA players or just about NBA players. And in the G League, he averaged 32 minutes per game and 17 points per game. So he had a very good season on the G League Ignite. And he's the second best player in this draft, I think. He's a future superstar. At 3 is Evan Mobley, in my opinion. Mobley is a center here, and I don't always agree with drafting a center very, very high. But Evan Mobley is a different type of center, considering that he's a 6'11", I'm pretty sure, center that can also shoot and space the floor well, and that's going to fit with the team very well. And maybe he's drafted by Cleveland, who knows? But I mean, he had a really good season at USC too, leading them to March Madness. And like I said, he had a really good season, averaging 16 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists. And whichever team he goes to he's going to fit pretty well with him, I think. And he can play power forward, center, whichever you want at 7 foot tall. At number 4 on my board, I have Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. We all know about the shot he made to send them to the championship game versus Baylor, where Baylor ended up blowing them out. But still, Jalen Suggs is a really good player, and he had a very good season at Gonzaga. So his stats, if we look at them, 14 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Also, he was playing with other great players like Corey Kispert, who probably is going to be a lottery pick as well. Next at number 5, Jonathan Kuminga from the G League Ignite again. Jonathan Kuminga definitely has some concerns in his game. His shooting, it definitely is one of those concerns. But if a team like Orlando drafts him, then he'll have plenty of time to develop, with them just starting to rebuild last season with trading Vucevic, Fournier, and all of them to different teams. And he's going to have plenty of time to develop. Teams need to be patient with Jonathan Kuminga. If they're not, then Jonathan Kuminga is going to be a pretty big bust in the top 5. At number 6, this kind of seems to be the consensus number 6 overall pick, and that's Scotty Barnes from Florida State. He's got great defense, is compared to Draymond Green a lot, with possibly better offensive upside than Draymond Green has. And that would be huge for a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who did miss out in the top 5. But with Scotty Barnes' potential, he could possibly be better than a Jonathan Kuminga. And I've even seen Jonathan Kuminga falling out of the top 5 in some of the latest mock drafts. At number 7, James Bouknight from UConn. He can score the ball whenever he wants, and he is a really good scorer. That's why I think he would fit so good with a team like the Warriors. And obviously, UConn is a little a little smaller of a school. It's not the big ones like Gonzaga or anything. But he averaged 18 points per game with 5 rebounds and 1 assist. Now, like I said, he can score the ball all the time, every possession. He is a really, really good scorer. But yeah. So next at number 8, I have Moses Moody, or not Moses Moody, Davion Mitchell out of Baylor. Davion Mitchell definitely has his concerns as well. With him being one of the older players in the draft, people are kind of a little concerned about that. He's already 22 years old, and some people are really concerned about that. But his defense is really, really good, not to mention that his offense is very good as well. He is Donovan Mitchell, in my opinion, but just a better defender. And he averaged 14 points, 5 assists, and 2 rebounds. And his stock really went up come March Madness time, which is very good for a team like maybe who drafts him, like the Warriors, who are going to be competing next season. Next up at number 9, I've got Moses Moody out of Arkansas. Moses Moody is a 3-and-D type player. His comparison, in my opinion, would be like a Robert Covington type player. Robert Covington is a very solid player. Like he might be better than a role player. But he's great defensively, and that's where the comparison for Robert Covington comes in. But he averaged 16 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist. So he's going to be a better scorer than Robert Covington, but still, he is really good at scoring, and he has a ton of potential. Next up at number 10, I've got Franz Wagner from Michigan. Franz Wagner is a player that has good defense. Has good defense as a forward, and he also had some pretty good offense. Now, with Franz Wagner, he had 12 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists in his sophomore year with Michigan. And yeah, so next up at number 11, I've got Kai Jones out of Texas. Kai Jones is the second big man on this list, but Kai Jones is either like in the 20s of mock drafts or like in this kind of range. I think that the Hornets are going to take him with the 11th pick. But he definitely, there's a lot of upside still with him being the number 11 pick. He only averaged 8 points, 4 rebounds, and obviously no assists per game at Texas. But still, there's a lot of potential. You could say that he's not even the best player. He was not even the best player on his own team last year with Greg Brown, possibly. You could argue with that, but still. Next up at number 12, Jalen Johnson out of Duke. He quit on Duke mid-season this year, and that brings a ton of concern to a lot of people here. But he's still a very good player, and he honestly wasn't great when he was at Duke this year, but he still has a ton of upside. A 6'9" forward, 11 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists at Duke. At number 13, I've got Keon Johnson out of Tennessee. Keon Johnson is great defensively, but his offense is horrible. He might be one of the worst offensive players in this draft. He's really bad offensively, but the defense is still very, very good. So that's why he's going to be in the lottery, is because of the defense. It's nowhere near because of anything else, because his offense is bad. Next up at number 14 is Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga. Corey Kispert plays good defense along with a great three-point shooter. That's basically what he does for your team. He's not going to probably be a superstar, but he's going to be a really good role player for a team. Next up at number 15, Alperen Sengun. He's the first overseas player from Turkey. And Alperen Sengun, there's possibility here. There's a lot of risk as well with him. I don't know. Next up at number 16, Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is a good point guard with good passing and needs a little work on his shooting and stuff, but still. Next up at number 17, Sharife Cooper from Auburn. Sharife Cooper has great passing ability along with good scoring ability, and a team like the Lakers definitely should be tempted to draft him at number 21. At number 18, Jaden Springer out of Tennessee. Jaden Springer either could be a first rounder or a second rounder. We don't really know with Jaden Springer. But I think that he's definitely a first round talent. Jaden Springer doesn't have a ton of. He's kind of like his teammate Keon Johnson. He's great defensively, but the offense still needs to come around a little bit. And yeah, so for Keon Johnson, he is a he is a he's not really a small guard. He's 6'4", and for him this year, he averaged 12 points per game, 2 assists per game, and 3 rebounds per game. So that's not a bad season at all. I do think that the defense is going to take some time to develop, or not defense, offense is going to take some time to develop, but still, I think that he is definitely a first-round talent. Next up is the exact opposite of Jaden Springer, Cam Thomas from LSU. Cam Thomas could score the ball a ton, but I think that that's going to be why his first year is going to be really curious and interesting, because a team like in the 20s where he's there, they most likely already have a pretty good player, and he's not going to have all the scoring ability like he did at LSU, where he averaged 23 points per game, 1 assist, and 3 rebounds. So that'll be interesting because he's been the main person on his team for quite a while now. Next up at number 20 is Jared Butler out of Baylor, another player that that he really went up as far as where he would be selected in the draft. Jared Butler's out of Baylor as well. They obviously had a big run to beat Gonzaga. He averaged 16 points per game, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds this year. Jared Butler is a player that definitely should be drafted in the first round, and I could even see him being drafted in the lottery come time for the draft. I don't think that's a bit crazy. Next up is another guard, Tre Mann out of Florida. Tre Mann is definitely interesting because there are some holes, but if we look here, Tre Mann averaged 16 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. So he is pretty good. The defense, though, that's going to be a question mark, obviously. But still, he had a good season at Florida and is going to be drafted in the first round, maybe by the Lakers. At number 22 is Isaiah Jackson from Kentucky. Isaiah Jackson is a big man. I think he's, the 4th big man in this video? But Isaiah Jackson here is a good player and could even go in the lottery, depending on what the Hornets think, whether it's Kai Jones, whether it's Alperen Sengun, whether it is Isaiah Jackson. Isaiah Jackson went to a disappointing Kentucky team last year. Didn't even average 10 points per game, 8 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 0 assists, obviously. So I'm not a big fan of him going in the lottery. I think that he should go in the first round, but definitely not as high as 11 in the draft. Next up at number 23 is Chris Duarte of Oregon. Chris Duarte is a scorer, and he's pretty good defensively as well. He is 6'6", so he's got good size for a guard as well. He is out of Oregon, like I said. 17 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, and a 53% field goal percentage. Next up at number 24, I have Usman Garuba out of Spain, another big man here. Usman Garuba, there's obviously not a ton that you can say with these overseas prospects. But for Usman Garuba, he's a power forward / center, 6'8", and okay, so here are the stats right here, and he averaged 4 points per game in 2020-2021 for Real Madrid, and he hasn't averaged, since he's been playing overseas, he's just not been good. He's averaged like 5 points per game. At number 25, Zaire Williams out of Stanford. This guy was a top 10 pick coming into the year, but he has fallen off a lot with injuries at Stanford. Played a big part in to why his draft stock has fallen so much. So injuries did play a big part into it, but he's a 6'8" power forward probably, and he went to Stanford last year, and he averaged 10 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. It wasn't a great year, and it was a disappointing year mainly because of injuries. Next up at number 26, Ayo Dosunmu out of Illinois. Ayo Dosunmu is underrated. definitely underrated in this draft. He is a 6'4" guard, and had a great season at Illinois last year, averaging 20 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. I don't know why he's late first round. He should and he's even in the second round in most mock drafts. He should be in the first round, definitely. Even though Illinois' season last year did end on a bit of a disappointment. Next up at number 27, Josh Christopher out of Arizona State. His draft stock has fallen quite a bit too, because coming into the season, we were projecting him as a lottery pick as well, but had a disappointing year at Arizona State and really went to a school that's not talked about a lot. And that didn't help any either for Josh Christopher. At Arizona State, 14 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist. Not a great season at all. And Arizona State didn't have a good season at all, really, either, with an 11-14 record. Next up at number 28 is Trey Murphy out of Virginia State. Trey Murphy, if we're looking here. So he is 21 years old. So there's a lot of people say there's some risk with that. But here he's 11 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. He's a late first round. He's definitely not. He's not a lottery pick. Next up at number 29 is Miles McBride out of West Virginia. Miles McBride didn't play for a huge known school in Virginia State. But if we're looking at his stats from last year, he averaged 15 points per game as a guard, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. And the final player on this list is Brandon Boston Jr., who was a top 5 possible pick coming into this year. But man, has his draft stock fallen after a horrible season at Kentucky for the Sanders coming into the year, averaging 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist. I still think he'll be drafted in the first round, and he is probably one of the players with the most potential in the draft. But man, he was horrible at Kentucky last year. It was a disappointment for Kentucky for most all of their players last year, but he had to be probably the biggest disappointment out of them all. So yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and turn notifications, because like I said, a lot of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So get your life together. Hit that subscribe button, turn notifications, and leave a like. Thank you for watching.